This is not about control. This is about letting go of control.
Okay.
And even the idea of control. You're not trying to fix something. You're trying to learn something.
Oh, see, that's very difficult for people like me to understand because I'm a problem solver. So I just look for ways to solve it. So this is very
okay. So what I'm offering you is a new tool.
I love it.
To think about your problem solving from a different level of your being.
Wow.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Yegi Project. I hope you guys are ready to start a new practice or at least put a new tool in your toolbox of when you need it, okay? And by that, I mean breath meditation. So in this next episode, we get to interview Miriam, who is a specialist, who is a coach and a podcaster about breath meditation. She has been doing this for many, many years and is now living in Maui where she runs her practice. But what's beautiful about her practice is that she literally gives so much to you for free on her podcast. I actually, after interviewing her, gave it a shot, and it has helped me to kind of ground myself and get my day started well. Here's a little backstory. If a lot of you have been listening and following for a while, you know that I am a person who loves to be successful, who loves to do the most and be productive, but at times I can get really overwhelmed. But I've also done a lot of studies about what it takes to be really successful, right? And a lot of successful people do meditate. So in the past, I have tried meditating, but the type of meditation that I had looked into was literally try to be quiet, don't get in your head, and all these misconceptions about meditation, right? I have tried some guided meditations, like the ones on YouTube, like a 10-minute positive morning ones that have worked for me in the past, but I feel like I had not known or had enough tools in order to meditate more regularly or feel better about meditation itself. So Miriam coming on this podcast was almost a blessing in disguise for me, and the biggest takeaway I got from this episode was actually being still and not trying to find a solution to certain problems in my life, but instead almost like letting it go, meditating about it and surrendering it. That's kind of how I understood it. But I can't wait for you guys to listen to this episode, see what you think about it, and it's totally doable, right? The key to life, to be successful, happy, all of that, is really having enough tools in our toolbox in order to get through the bad moments so we can have more good moments in our life. So I hope you guys enjoy. Well, let's jump right in. Hi, I'm Yegi. I'm an entrepreneur and success coach who wants it all. Family, luxury, career, and the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And I'll do whatever it takes to get there. I created the Yegi Project to document my journey and inspire others to do the same. My mission is to change the world by influencing and leading others to do what they love and live fulfilled lives. Hello. Welcome back to the Yegi Project. Today we have Miriam, who specializes in meditation. She has her podcast called Miriam's Meditation and has so much to share with us today. So I'm excited to get to know her, but I'll leave the floor to her for her to let us know a little bit about her and what work she really does.
Hi, Yegi. Thank you so much for welcoming me to your podcast, and hello to all your listeners. I'm super happy to be here sharing what I know and do about breath and meditation, and maybe helping to clear up some misconceptions about meditation and help some people who've always wanted to meditate figure out how to get into the practice and sustain a nourishing meditation practice for themselves. So thanks very much for having me.
Thank you. And I'm actually those people. So I do a lot of studies on success and happiness, and I know meditation is such a big part of it, but I've never been able to consistently and successfully meditate. So I'm very, very excited to hear what you have to say and what you have to share too. So I'm excited for my listeners as well, because we know meditation could be such a good tool to keep us in balance, to keep us in peace. But a lot of times we don't know much about it, I feel like, unless we spend the time to really learn or have somebody guide us through it. So please share more. So what is breath meditation? And I also read in your bio you do light nourishment. I don't know too much about that. If you can share that with our listeners, I'd be very excited.
Okay, we'll just launch right in. So, there are some popular misconceptions about meditation that I think keep people from joining the practice. And one of the things is that you're supposed to have nothing going on in your brain when you're meditating. And our brains are designed to think thoughts. It's very difficult to turn our thoughts off. So, and this was the case for me. When I was in college, I studied psychology. I got a degree in psychology. I've always been very interested in consciousness and had a number of people suggest meditation. Oh, this is really great. It would help you to calm yourself, be less anxious, all that great stuff. But just sitting around doing nothing was not very successful for me either, until I found the breath teacher who I connected with. My breath teacher and I connected back in the 90s. And the practice that she taught me were some very specific breathing exercises that are different than just watching your breath. You can begin to meditate by just simply watching your breath flow in and flow out. And some people find real success with that. And it's the place that I usually start with beginners, because a lot of us have some breathing patterns that are less than optimum for ourselves. And we can get into that in a moment if you'd like to talk more deeply about
Yeah,
the
please.
breath and the breath in the body. But just in terms of the breath and meditation, the breath exercises that I teach, that I learned, have a kind of power to balance the different sides of the brain, to balance the heart and mind energy, and to bring you into a kind of centeredness and clarity that when you do the breath exercises, what I found and what my students find is that they are all of a sudden in a meditative state after the breath exercises. Because there's something about the breath exercises that is more than just the normal breathing that we usually do.
So as far as the breath exercises, so if I'm starting out, what would I pay attention to? Can you go a little bit deep more into that?
Sure. So when you're first beginning, it's a very important thing to be able to simply notice how you're breathing. So we can do that right now. You can
Okay.
close your eyes if you like. If you're not driving your car, you can close your eyes, or if you feel safe and comfortable where you are, and you can just close your eyes and begin to feel how your breathing is in your body. Now, with your mouth closed, breathe in through your nose and notice that it's cool and dry, and breathe out through your nose and notice that it's warm and moist. And just notice that pattern for a moment. Note if one side of your nose is more open and active than the other side. Notice if you've breathed mainly up in your chest and your shoulders move a lot when you breathe. Notice if your belly is moving at all when you breathe, or your ribs expanding. Our ribs are supposed to pivot and expand on the sides, in the front, and in the back.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to pay attention to all of that now. I never thought about breathing with so much motion and with your body, and not only just, your lungs.
Right. So your whole cavity, from your pelvic basin to your diaphragm to the muscles at the top of your whole chest and body cavity move with the breath, or they should, at least a little bit. Now, your breath depends on what you're doing. If you're dancing, your breath is going to be very different than if you're sitting down reading a book. It should be. But if you're sitting down reading a book and your breath is still very rapid or very shallow, you're likely to feel very anxious, because there's a mismatch between how your breath is in your body and the activity you're actually doing. Since your body is not physically moving around a lot, then your carbon dioxide and oxygen balance becomes unstable, not unstable, that's not really the right word, but not optimum for the activity that you're doing.
Oh, that.
And that in and of itself, if your breath is agitated, can make you feel anxious even though nothing around you is anxiety producing.
So with breath, what I've noticed for myself in the past, and a lot of people have told me too, with stress or we don't even know why. At times we tend to kind of hold our breath, but we're not even
Mm-hmm.
holding our breath on purpose. But then you realize you're holding your breath, and then it's causing, the headaches, or it's causing all sorts of negative things in our body. So why does that happen with the breath when we're not paying attention to it?
Well, there are a lot of reasons that it could happen. Um, what tends to happen to us as we grow and age is things happen to us that might be traumatic or unsettling, and we may not have the tools or the safety to process those things in the moment. And so the body stores that memory, and over time it can change how we are in our body. We can develop a holding pattern in our breath. And simply becoming aware of how often are you breathing. You should breathe at the most at rest 10 to 12 times a minute. And even that's kind of rapid. My breath at this point is 5 or 6 times in a minute. So if your breath is 20 times in a minute, you're probably breathing too much. If you're holding your breath and not breathing enough, that causes a lot of constriction in the throat and in the upper chest. So some of that could be related to trauma that's stored in the body. Some of it is just faulty breathing patterns. And you can unravel that by simply paying attention to how you're breathing. But you can't do it while you're doing 10 other different things. The point of the practice is to sit with yourself and get to know yourself. That's the essence of a meditative practice. And that's the doorway that the breath offers us into learning about ourselves, is that we are listening deeply to who we are and how we are in the moment. So if you're sitting and you're watching your breath, and you're noticing that you're thinking a thought pattern that generally causes you anxiety. It just showed up. You weren't really thinking about it, but you stopped moving and boom, there it is. Now your breathing has changed. Oh, that's information. That's information for you that shows that this particular mental pattern is connected to your physical body and is causing you distress in how you are breathing. So if you could take a moment right then now, see how long that exhalation was? A lot of times when people think about breathing practice, they think about it as a way to get more air in. But you can't fill a cup that's full. You have to empty the cup in order to put more in it. So if you think of your breathing capacity as a cup that fills and empties, you have to be able to empty. So I usually start my beginning breath students with exhale. Let it all out. Keep exhaling. Keep exhaling. Oh my God, I didn't realize I had so much breath that I could get rid of. Now you're really clear and empty. And when you breathe in again, there's more space.
You almost feel lighter, I want to say. And I've noticed sometimes for myself too, anytime, even if like I'm at a point where I'm just really stressed out, and even if I just do like that big exhale and that really just opens up space for the more healthy breaths to go in, if that makes sense. But
Sure, it does, and it makes space. Space is the quality that we are asking of our bodies. Another quality of an optimum breath would be that it's balanced. So some people it's constrictive for them to bring in the breath. It's hard for them to get some breath in. They give everything away when they breathe in a little bit and then they breathe out a lot. That's information for you. If you are having trouble breathing in, then perhaps you are having trouble receiving from life.
so will the first step be to really just sit down daily and just pay attention to your breath and try to figure out what's going on? Will that be somebody's first
Mhm.
step? They want to put this to practice at least.
That's a great first step. And let me offer your listeners a tip that I tell all my beginning meditators and breathers, and that is to find a piece of music that appeals to you, that has no words or anything that's going to cause you to think, just something very peaceful and soothing, and only use that piece of music for your breath practice. And I did this when I first started doing breath practice, and what I found was it was a very difficult point in my life. And sometimes I would sit down to do my breath practice that my teacher had given us, and I was too agitated. But I'd put my music on, and my body was now entrained to the music. And the music made like a container for
Oh,
me to do my breath practice. So instead of my body being agitated or busy or trying to run off and do something else, my body was now a friend to my breath practice because it heard the music and it went, oh, must be time to breathe.
conditioning, it's conditioning your
Conditioning.
it's recognizing, okay, this sound means, oh, I'm going to get into this peaceful breathing zone. And I've learned more about that because of my kids. It's like, okay, let's sleep train. Music turns on. It's a first, condition.
Perfect. Exactly. It's exactly conditioning. And so you are conditioning yourself. You are attempting to unwind some of the conditioning that is not serving you anymore. A faulty breathing pattern, anxiety, mental instability, you think too much, your brain gets hot, all those sorts of things. You are overriding or releasing that old conditioning and creating new conditioning for yourself.
Wow, I love that. I love that. It sounds, easy enough to
It is.
apply. But I do want to also share with my listeners, and please share more with us. I know you have your Miriam's meditation podcast, right? And you use it as a way of somebody that knows nothing about it. They can just go on there, listen, and really follow the guidance and instructions you're giving. Can you please share a little bit more about what you do on there?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, so the breathing podcast, we're in season 4 at the moment, and breath practice is a cumulative exercise. So if you're a brand new to all of this, I would suggest you start back in season 1 and pick a few episodes and listen in. Because in the beginning episodes, I give a lot more specific, detailed instruction about breathing. I also have a recent episode called Elements of Breath. It's about an hour long. It's a workshop that I did, and it does a lot of really good explaining about why do we do breath practice? What's the point? Sitting around and breathing, it sounds kind of boring. What's the benefit? But there are lots of benefits, and it can be really rich and soothing. So the season that we're in now almost assumes that you've listened along for a while or that you've gone through some of the other seasons and listened to a few episodes so that you can participate with us. And so there's a short breathing practice, and then there's a guided meditation.
So you build on it. So it's more
Correct.
it's more like a workshop, which is amazing actually, because
Mm-hmm.
you can access it and you go through it and you grow with it. I love that so much. But you also mentioned for the breathing, the benefits of it. Can you share the top 3 benefits for our listeners?
Sure. Well, I don't know about the top 3. I can tell you that learning to do the breath practice made me calmer, happier, cleared out a lot of old residues of emotional problems that where I had just been carrying around for a long time. So I was in my mid 30s when I started doing breath practice. And for me, I had a lot of anxiety and agitation and unresolved issues from my early life, from my family patterns, etc. And sitting down with myself and doing these particular breath exercises allowed me to clear my emotional body so that I became current with my emotions. So I wasn't overreacting to situations in my present life based on old stuff that was unresolved, that was in my emotional body, and then it cleared my physical body. So clearing your emotional body, clearing your physical body of faulty breathing patterns that are perpetuating difficulties in your body, and also helping you release mental patterns that are no longer serving you.
And all of that you were able to accomplish with the breathe meditation or exercises.
Correct. Right.
Wow.
So I know it's a lot. It doesn't seem like it would be that rich, but it really, really is. And even just the most simple learning that I had a student in a class recently who breathed only up in her chest and used a lot of her neck muscles to breathe. In fact, instead of opening her body to the breath, she was sucking in her abdomen every time she breathed. And just watching her breathe was painful. I was like, wow. And so just sitting in class for an hour, she had an amazing revelation that she was breathing backwards. Reverse breathing of this kind can make you very anxious. If you just practice reverse breathing for a little while, you will start to feel anxious. So it's a chicken and egg kind of scenario. Which one came first? Did the bad breathing come and then make you anxious, or did the anxiety create the faulty breathing pattern? It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you're now aware of it. And that if you are aware that you are having some faulty breathing patterns, then you can begin to address them little by little.
Wow.
It does take some dedication. You really do want to do it a few days a week, at least for 5 or 10 minutes at a time in the beginning. That's where I started. It was 10 or 15 minutes of breathing practice, and then I worked myself up to about a half an hour of the actual exercises, and then some meditation. Now, the podcast only has about 10 minutes of breathing exercises and about 15 minutes or so of meditation. But what I discovered when I did do these very specific breathing exercises that are beyond just watching your breath, I finished my practice and found myself in this clear, open, meditative state that I had never experienced before.
Wow.
And that was really exciting to me because I had really tried all
Yeah.
kinds of different practices and it was not successful.
Yes, honestly, I never tried that. Like I said, I tried meditating a few times, and I even bought a book like what is meditation, and it was confusing to be honest. It's so simple, but yet when you come down to practice it, at least it was very challenging for me. The only type of meditation I've ever been able to do is just the guided ones, to be
Mhm.
able to fully like try to be present and follow it. But I've never tried to kind of do the breathing exercises and clear all that up to be able to have that open space, possibly to be able to meditate better. So I'm very, very curious to go to your season 1 podcast and hear it out. So for a lot of our podcast listeners, they're used to listening while they're driving. Now, how do they need to, or what do you recommend for people to kind of carve out the time in their day, morning, evening, in order to start even with the 10-minute of the breath exercise?
Really, really good question, and thank you for asking that. I'm a podcast listener too who listens in my car, so I can, I can relate. My podcast is definitely something you will want to do in a safe, quiet place. I recommend that people create a little corner in their home that's dedicated to their personal practice. It could be a room if you have a room, but most of us just have a little corner space, and that's what I started with. And I had a small table, and I put some pretty rocks, and I had a candle, and sometimes a flower. Occasionally, I would put some nice smell in the air with a candle or some essential oils, because you're taking this time to be with you. You are creating a space in your life to get to know yourself better. That's the essence of having any kind of spiritual practice. You are looking deeply into who you truly are. And beyond the personality level, who am I? Beyond the personality expression, the deeper layers of my being. So finding a place in your home where you go to that space, and just like the music container that we talked about, creating a sacred space in your home is exactly the same way. Your physical being responds to that, and you set up a momentum for yourself that gives you some assistance. right now you have all kinds of momentum going on all the things that you do, all the things that are important to you. And if you just try to jam meditation practice in the cracks around all of that other all of that other momentum, it's going to be a lot harder than it should be. It can be a lot simpler than that. But it's simply a matter of creating a space, finding some music, dedicating yourself to 10 minutes. If you can do it every day, wow, good for you. Set yourself up a chart, give yourself a gold star, and go down and get yourself a donut or, or a green smoothie or something something really delicious that's a nice reward for you. It does take a certain dedication at first. And some people call that discipline and shy away from discipline. Oh, wow, that sounds really hard. But what I found was if I just gave myself a chance, the old momentum of that overbusyness began to fade pretty quickly. And very soon I discovered this nourishment of this time by myself with my breath practice and with my meditation practice was like food. And very soon I found I could not do without it. I really, really needed it. And so then now I had momentum that sustained the practice for me. You don't have to keep sustaining it over time when you have momentum carrying you along. If you set it up well and give yourself a chance to get acclimated to it, you will find that there's so much value in it to you that you want to continue, and it becomes easier, not harder.
Yes, and one thing I'd like to add to that, it's almost like building a new habit or learning something new. It's super difficult at first, and but then there's that exponential factor to it. If you keep pushing, the first time's going to be the hardest, second time's tiny bit easier, but after a while it just becomes almost like second nature to us, right? It just becomes like you said, it doesn't feel like work anymore. We don't have to try, we just, our bodies crave it, we want it. And I had found that actually with running, like that was my sort of meditation. I don't know, maybe like 4 years ago. I haven't been able to do that with my young kids. I had long backstory, difficult pregnancies, all those good reasons and excuses why I kind of stopped. But I noticed back then it would never felt like exercise to me, never felt like anything besides I'm craving that good feeling after I run. So after I
Mhm.
pushed myself the first like 15 minutes, even like in the beginning, it just became like a way of my day. I would wake up and okay,
Mhm.
let's go on my run. Um,
Mhm.
so I could totally see that same way of applying the meditation, and I keep talking about it. I keep wanting to push myself to get there, but I never tried with the breathing. And I think for someone like me, I think I hold a lot of tension in my shoulders too, and I know it's part of like my issue with my breath and kind of holding it. I don't know when and why I developed that, so I'm very excited to go to your podcast and try it and see, like, at least have that be my starting point with the breath exercises. Because I don't know how it never clicked to me. The breath, it could be a place to start. I've always just wanted to dive into the meditation itself, just the full thing. I want to sit quietly with nothing, maybe stare at a candle, because that was one trick I read somewhere, but it never worked. And, when you're not good at something, or if something doesn't work after a couple of times, we're discouraged to try it. So the key is to really break it down and make it easy enough where we can do it back to back. So, like you said, and reward ourselves. So then it does become second nature to us. Um, Thank you. I had a light bulb moment right now.
Wonderful. I'm so pleased. That's great. It's nice to get a new perspective on your own, the things that are stopping you, right? Why has this not worked for me in the past? And if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about some misconceptions about meditation itself,
Yeah, that's
because
what I'm going to ask you next.
yeah, let's dive into that for a minute. So, a lot of people think meditating means doing nothing, and that seems really difficult. And for me, my discovery about meditation is it's a kind of energy that your brain develops a capacity to do. So there are many different kinds of brain waves. There's alpha waves, there's gamma waves, there's beta waves that your brain naturally produces. And when you set up to do meditation and you really achieve a meditative state, it's a particular kind of brain wave. Now it varies which level of the brain waves you might be in at the moment. And the names of the waves don't really matter as much, except to realize that it's like a field of energy, like a beautiful symphony. Let's say you're sitting in a concert hall and you're surrounded by beautiful music. It creates an energy room. And so when you find the meditative state, which if you do the breath practice, and practice on a regular basis for a little while, and then just sit with your breath afterwards and notice how it feels. Notice the place that the breath has carried you to. You may find that all of a sudden it's like it's a field of energy. Your brain is operating in a new way, and it's quieter, but at the same time you might be having very high thoughts. You may be having really expansive ideas, epiphanies even, like, wow, I never thought of that like that. That's all part of getting to know yourself through a meditative practice. It's an expanded way of being that comes from how you are using your brain.
Wow. So, you talked about the three different waves. Can you talk a little bit about the differences, or in what scenario do we put our brains in those different states? And is there like a strategic way to access that level in my brain to achieve a goal?
No. Okay, so the reason I say that is because you are clearly a very accomplished person and you look at things in a kind of step-by-step fashion and you want a formula that's going to work and
Yeah.
you'd like somebody to give you some instructions you can follow. Okay, so all of that is fine. However, the place you are going with your breath and your meditation is a place you've never been before. And the way you are looking to set up your consciousness is not by a linear step-by-step thing. Even though using a breath practice seems like it's kind of a step-by-step thing, what you are doing is accessing a non-linear way of being. It's a very expansive, open state that is fresh and uplifting and expansive. So it goes beyond recognizing anything in particular related to names of different kinds of brainwaves. You may have already had a similar experience to a very nice meditative state while feeling very peaceful holding your child, or listening to a particularly beautiful piece of music, or that moment when the sun lights up the sky at the end of the day and you just go, Last night I went outside to let my dog out and there was a beautiful crescent moon and Venus in the evening sky. And I just stood there and looked at it for a while and let myself expand out into the sky, out to the moon, out to the star, and was just present with the moment. And this is a very non-linear sort of activity. So you can do that anywhere. There are doorways all around you to get to this beautiful state. Beauty, noticing beauty around you, creating beauty, any kind of art, running. You can create this kind of high meditative state while you're running because you are doing your breath in a very particular way as you
Yeah.
run.
Yes, honestly,
So
about I've experienced with running. So I'm like, oh, that would be amazing to be able to
very,
access that high, that good, that like that sharp. It was almost like a positive, sharp state where my brain worked differently. So I could
there you go.
yeah, so I could totally
Exactly.
meditation would just be a tool where you can access that like good feeling. I don't know if
Right.
what to even call it, more frequently or more easily.
Right.
So.
Right. And when you do that, the benefit of doing that on a regular basis, first of all, here's another tip for your listeners. When you sit to do your breath and meditation practice or any type of meditation practice, I recommend that you get a pen and a piece of paper and put it right next to your seat.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the reason that you do this is because when you stop moving, your brain is going to start to tell you a lot of very important things it doesn't want you to forget. And they're all very important things, right? Don't forget to buy this at the store. My little girl, she needs this thing. I can't forget to do that. All of this is important. And so what I found, I was a busy mother too when I first started my practice, is that if I wrote it all down, I was like emptying out my brain
All
because
the
it was
clutter.
right there. And so later, while I was doing my practice, when my brain reminded me of this very important thing it didn't want me to forget, I could say, oh yeah, but I wrote that down. So I can forget about it now. It's okay to let that go. I don't have to keep thinking about it because I wrote it. So that's step one. Let your brain empty out and write all that stuff down. Go back to your breath, go back to your meditating, go back to just being spacious and open. And what begins to happen next is that your higher, deeper wisdom begins to tell you really important things it's been trying to tell you, but you were busy trying to remember what to get at the grocery store.
I'm laughing because I've experienced that. It's very true.
So now you have your ordinary consciousness. And you have written all of the important things down for your personality level consciousness on this piece of paper. Sometimes I would even like open one eye and go, oh yeah, okay, I wrote it. Yeah, I remember. It's right there. I can let it go. And then I would let it go because it was already taken care of. It was still important.
I
You want to recognize that's important.
I'm so sorry to pause you right there, but I want to pause and kind of reiterate what you just said because I think one of the biggest issues for me and a lot of people that I talk to with the meditation or quieting our minds or really trying to relax and calm down when we're sitting is just that. It's all that stuff that's just playing in the back of our heads. But that tool that you just gave us with the pen and the paper right next to us, it's almost like a token that, hey, it's okay. It's okay to have these thoughts. Just here's a tool for you to kind of be letting it go and being able to relax while you're trying to do your breath exercises. So I love that so much. I wanted to kind of repeat it to make sure our listeners really got that because if you've tried it, most likely in the beginning you've had that issue. You've had the
Mhm.
issue of like getting frustrated that you can't just relax and calm down. But having that tool and being aware of that and being okay with that, I just love that so much. So thank you for sharing that. And I
You're
hope
welcome.
listeners take that really seriously, because
Mhm.
it's golden. It really is.
I agree. And it's something that helped me so much in the beginning because I like to figure things out. And I like to use my brain to figure things out. And I collect a lot of information. I think about things. And that's my tool for moving through the world. And so when I would sit to do this practice, I would have all of this really important stuff that I had been working on with my thoughts. And I didn't want they are important. I want to emphasize that for your listeners. They're really important. They're important to you. They're things you're working on. They have to do with your family or your work or your projects. It's not as though we are saying the ordinary you is not good enough, not important, like the ego is bad. None of that is true. Your ego is really important. It's how we interact with each other. It's your personality. You have a lot invested in your ordinary world. But if you give yourself a moment to let your mind empty onto that piece of paper with your pen, now you have, you can exhale. You can let your shoulders drop away from your ears. You can let your jaw relax. You can let your tongue rest on the bottom of your mouth. Now you can breathe in and breathe out, and you can just breathe because you've put all of that important stuff and go back to it. If something else pops up, oh, I didn't write this part, write some more. And then I found after I had done that, and I still do that, often come out of meditation with some really important information from my higher self, and I'll write for 10, 15, 30 minutes. Really deep, clear things I've been working on. Einstein said this. He did his formulas, he thought about things a lot, and then he would sit around and sort of daydream a little bit. And that's when all the pieces came together and he was inspired for some of his most powerful formulas. It was in those spaces that he created in between the ordinary stuff that he was doing. That's what you want to do. You want to create enough space in between all of that busy activity for these higher levels of your mind to give you some synthesis. And then now you're operating from a much higher level, a much deeper dynamic. Your life is going to start to work better. You're going to have less busy brain activity that's not exactly meaningless, but not exactly productive either.
Yeah.
That repetitive stuff that just goes on and on and on, you're going to get less of that stuff over time.
So one thing I've heard that I just remembered, or I don't remember exactly where I heard it or read about it, was if we, really slow down, or if we can really like access that part of our brain, like we have all the answers we're looking for. We just need to give our brains a chance to give it to you, right? And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I don't know too much details about it, but if you can share a little bit with our listeners, the value of that, because like you said, a lot of times we're so busy. Even right now, I am overall a pretty aware person, but right now, because my excuse, I guess, is my little kids, it's been tough. They're tiny, and with having such a big load, I just feel like I'm too busy, right? I'm too busy, but there's all this clutter in my head. But what I, again, was just reminded again is if we just take that moment, that 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it could
Mhm.
really give you the answers. Like for me to sit, like worry about one problem or one problem, let's say I'm having in my business, for me to worry about it for days and hours and weeks, I probably have that answer already, but I'm too busy to listen to myself, basically. So I could see that if I were to kind of slow down, sit down, and sometimes that happens to me, sit down and slow down, I'll be like, oh, this is so clear. Like I knew this all along. So can you talk a little bit more about that experience and the psychology, or, that brain part behind it?
Sure, that's very astute, and our lives have filled with a lot of stimulation, and so we can find ourselves really overstimulated, whether we have small children or not, and our world encourages us to stay engaged and to take in all of this stimulus all of the time. It does not give us any moments to synthesize and come to these higher levels of wisdom. So my personal experience is that I have a deeper, wiser part of my being, and I consider it the larger part of who I truly am. So a big part of my meditation practice has been to get in touch with that truly wiser, deeper, knowing self. And we all have that. No one is not equipped with this deeper, wiser self.
Oh, I love
And
that.
so you that's the place that is coming forward in between those pockets of space in between all the busyness. Your inner being is wanting very much to be in dialogue with you, wanting very much for you to give it a chance to give you some important information. We in our society are trained to believe that we can rationalize or puzzle out the answer to everything. But that's not really how it works. We can give our brains a lot of good information, but we do need space and openness for the brain to put all those pieces together for us. And beyond the brain, there is a higher mind that belongs to your deeper inner self. And that is the source of that deeper inner wisdom. And that's the place that you will make space for with a practice like this. And it's just, a lot of people think it's a matter of doing one more thing. Oh Lord, one more thing I have to do. It seems like I already have too much to do. What I'm asking you to do is not do, but be. And I believe that the more that we practice who we truly are in beingness, the more expansive our lives become, and the more the solutions just show up. We don't have to work so hard. You're probably working 30 or 40% harder than you actually need to.
Wow.
And when you take a moment or 10 or 15 minutes and give yourself that time on a regular basis, you will find the solutions showing up. And it's not just that you're figuring it out. Life is trying to bring it to you. It's trying to give you connections with other people, resources that you are going to stumble across, connections, just rendezvous. People are going to come, resources are going to show up because you've given yourself a little bit of space to allow life to work for you. So we've been trained to believe we have to do it all on our own. That's not been my experience at all. And I was exactly like you, very, very busy, little kids, running a business, trying to keep up with all of the stuff that all of that entails. And when I found that I made time for a breath and meditation practice and began to become familiar with my mind, my emotional body, and things in my physical body that were trapped energy that I could release with this breath practice,
Wow.
that I began to think more clearly, brainstorm better solutions, run into people and resources that I needed for the projects that I was working on. My life had more joy. I was more compassionate. I became a better person. All of that from breathing every day and talking, listening to my own being.
I love that so much. Well, can you share a little bit more background about you for our listeners? So tell us a little bit more. Now I wanted to get to know you a little bit more, if you don't mind. I know you prefer to talk more about your practice, but what made you get into it anyways? Was there like a trigger or like, that's it, I've had it, I'm going to figure meditation out? Like that's going to be the next thing I'm going to try to be happy or to be fulfilled.
Well, I was, as I mentioned, I studied psychology in college when I was in my 20s and was always very interested in consciousness. And so I read as much as I could find about consciousness, expanding consciousness, and all of that moved me along the path. But in my mid-30s, I had the great good fortune to meet this breath teacher who was just operating in my circle of friends. Somebody told me about her. Look, she does this really great. I didn't know anything about it. I had never even heard about breathing as a practice. I had heard about meditating, but I didn't realize that. I thought, well, we breathe every day, right? What could this
Everybody can
possibly be?
breathe.
Everybody, you have to breathe or you die. So, I mean, everybody's doing it. And so I called this person, this woman, Swami Satyananda, who had studied in India, these very high advanced breath practices. And I spoke with her on the phone for a while. I said, yeah, okay, I'll come. And then I called her back. I said, no, I'm not coming. I don't think this is for me. And she called me back and she says, you need this. This your energy. I'm just talking to you and I can tell you were a person who really needs some help. And she was right. I was enormously anxious. I was going through a divorce. It was very, very, very difficult time in my life. So I went and I sat in her classroom and I did these powerful breath exercises. And I wept and I was angry and I was exalted and I had all these amazing emotions. And I realized that the household that I grew up in, I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and there was never really quite enough of anything. And that I had this very confused template inside myself. And that as I got to adulthood, I really didn't have the tools I needed to meet adulthood in a really fulfilling way. Because I was so confused. I was confused about my emotions. I didn't realize what different emotions were. I could think about them, but I didn't know what they really felt like. And so doing the breath practice, I also got into some talk therapy around this time, and that was really, really helpful. And I encourage people, if they feel like a breath practice is bringing up strong, powerful emotions that they don't feel equipped to deal with, that they seek out some professional support. Everybody needs somebody smart to talk to from time to time. And so I did that, and I found that I was carrying a lot of emotional load that was really, I was really ready to clarify and purify myself of this burden. It was very burdensome to me. And so I just kept doing my breath practice. And I found it was enormously useful in helping me identify the ways that my mind was not working for me, my emotions were not working for me, the way my mind and my emotions were tangled up with each other. I would think this one thing, and then I would feel this other thing, and then I would think the thing again, and then I would feel the thing again, and I was like a little hamster on the wheel, right? Running around and around in circles, exhausted. I was completely exhausted. And so I was really fortunate to have a teacher who taught me this. And this is why I want to share this practice in my podcast, is that I feel like a lot of people are searching for just this kind of tool. The practice is not for everyone. There are lots of different practices, and many people are doing lots of different kinds of meditation practices that get them to this place of clarity. For me, this is what did it.
Yeah.
And so I did this study for about 10 years. It was amazing for me. It changed my life.
Wow.
It absolutely changed my life.
Awesome. Okay, so here's another question for you. So what does working on things as energy mean?
So working on things is energy. So let's say that you have developed your practice. You have gotten past some of your emotional agitation and your mental agitation, and you can sit in a quiet place. Now imagine that there is some situation in your life that is very powerful for you in the moment. It's very challenging. It's something you've been working on for a long time. You really haven't been able to find a solution. So in my meditation practice, I might, in the quiet, think of this thing that is challenging for me. Let's say it's a relationship with another person. So I might feel around, what does it feel like? It feels like this. Does it have a color? Does it have a shape? Does it feel fluid and flowing, or is it kind of clunky? Is it dark and kind of congested? So I get the parameters of what I am addressing. And then very first thing I usually do is see if I can breathe into it. Can I just imagine that I'm breathing some space into this thing? So you see, this is not a mental exercise. This is an energy exercise. I'm just imagining that this thing can breathe, and the breath flows in and the breath flows out, and space begins to come. And so now if there's a little bit of spaciousness, can I add beauty? Is there a way I can just think about beauty and transmit beauty to this thing that I am concerned about? Can I add harmony? Can I just simply feel more light? Can I picture a light coming down from above and filling this with light? And then I just sit with it and see what happens. So a big part of this is not controlling. I'm not trying to change it. I'm not trying to make another person do anything that makes me feel better. I am asking for the wisdom from my deeper self. What is this really about? Is there something that's ready to change? What can I change about me that would make this situation better? So these are all questions that I ask myself, and then I sit with this energy and see if it begins to change. Now, it may feel like you're just making it all up. That's okay. In the beginning, we are really just kind of imagining it. We are using our imagination to access something that's been kind of thorny for us in a fresh way. That's not mental, it's not linear, it's not step by step. It's energy. Everything is energy. We're energy patterns. Our world is energy patterns. Everything's constantly in motion. What we're wanting to do is access the underlying energy of that situation or thing. And it's a matter of listening to see what you can learn from that. And then I just step away from it. I'm not looking for an outcome. I'm not trying to make something happen. I'm just asking for some space, seeing if I can add harmony or beauty or brilliance or love, peace, whatever occurs to you. And then let it be. And then come back to your breathing, go back into your day, and then just look around. See what happens. Is there a change? Even a very small change is very significant.
That's honestly very hard for me to understand and follow right now. I don't know why. 'Cause I guess I've never tried it or experienced it, or I don't know. It makes no and I don't want to say it makes no sense to me, but I understand what you're saying. But as far as um addressing my problem as an energy, I think I need more. I need more to understand it. Um,
Do you
and
want me to
I
say more,
don't.
or do you have a specific question? What's your
Uh,
question?
I'm like, what is my question? Um, so your example initially was okay, having a problem, let's say, with somebody else, right? So if I feel a certain way, or if I have a problem with this person, um, how am how am I guess my more confusion or my question would be, how am I trying to control this energy when I have no control over the other person?
Okay, so it's a very valuable question because this is not about control. This is about letting go of control
Okay.
and even the idea of control. You're not trying to fix something. You're trying to learn something.
Oh, see, that's very difficult for people like me to understand because I'm a problem solver. So I just look for ways to
I know.
solve it. So this is
I know.
very
Okay, so what I'm
clear.
what I'm offering you is a new
I
tool
love it.
to think about your problem solving from a different level of your being.
Wow.
I'm inviting you into a greater awareness of who you truly are.
Wow.
So, this is the capacity humanity has, and we are learning to develop it. How to step back from a problem solving, ordinary consciousness way of thinking about things to a deeper knowing and opening to the energy that is there. So, what I'm asking you to do is sit quietly to open to the energy that is there and observe
Hmm.
and be with it. And the only task is to see if you can feel beautiful or feel harmony. You don't even have to do that part of it. You can simply sit and listen to it. See if it has a color. See if it has a shape. See if the energy is flowing or stopped. Seeing how does it feel to you? Does it feel scritchy? Does it feel in this part of your body? When you think about this, does your back hurt all of a sudden? Like, oh wow,
Oh,
I'm actually
wow.
storing this in my body. This is all information for you that you can access when you're quiet.
Wow. I'm very curious to try now. I love that. I love that. It's like a whole different, like you said, a whole different tool for problem solving. And I think for the common person who doesn't know much about spirituality, energy, and all of that, a meditation, it's hard to understand because we
Right.
approach things with, like you said, like a logical, linear way of, okay, this is the problem. These are my ABCD options. We don't look at it, okay, let me just look within, you called it your inner wiser self. Let me
Mhm.
pause. Let me put positive energy to it. This is how I'm understanding it. Please
You're
correct me.
doing you're doing beautifully. It's a beautiful explanation. You're totally getting it. See, I have chills listening to you talk. You are getting it. You totally understand. It's a process. What I'm offering you is a process that allows you to access this deeper inner wisdom beyond your usual tools, which are still very valuable. I'm not saying any of those tools should throw those away. Those are great. They're wonderful tools. But when you have a situation that's just not responding, or you want to go deeper with it. You want to understand something that happened to you way back in your childhood, and you'd like to know more how it affected you. Where did it come from? What really happened there? How is it affecting you now? These are all, this is a way that you could find some of those answers for
I love
yourself.
that. I honestly love that. And it's almost like letting go and just kind of trusting in the process, And
Exactly.
experience
Yes.
that without really trying randomly in life is when you just really stop trying so hard and you just let it go.
Yes.
Like people say, I'm going to leave it in God's hands, whatever's meant to happen. Like
Sure.
people say that too,
Sure.
but,
Sure.
but,
This is very similar, and it's exactly what it's exactly what you're talking about. It's happened to all of us. We've all had this experience. What I'm offering you is a tool and a process to recreate that experience on purpose.
yes, yes, and that just clicked for me. That and the meditation too, like how I accidentally accessed that level in my brain with the running. I love
Mm-hmm.
that I love when I get into that feeling. I seek it
Mm-hmm.
more. And honestly, personally, I've been having a little bit hard time this couple of years to get into that that space. And I was just telling my husband like a couple of days ago, I said, I just need something. Like I need to a new tool. I think that's what I was seeking for. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that you gave those to me. So I'm excited to try. Thank you so
So, and
much.
you called on me. You sent me an email and said, "Would you come on my podcast and talk to my listeners?" You were seeking a particular kind of tool. You were not looking for an ordinary personality level tool, because you asked me to talk with you about the things that I know. And this is the practice that I know. And I was exactly where you are when I started. And we are all just walking along the path. I'm walking here. There are people far ahead of me. There are people walking along beside me. We are all just walking along together, learning these things. And so you created this rendezvous with me. This is your inner being saying, "Hey, Yegi, talk to that lady. She can tell you some stuff."
I love it. I love it. Well, we are actually out of time, and I would love to pick your brain some more, but I'm going to go listen to your podcast from episode 1. But my last question to you, because I love to hear what everybody has to say about this, because it's so different for everybody. So, what does a happy, fulfilled life mean to you?
A happy, fulfilled life is one that has purpose, and it's one of service. That is what it means to me, is that I am living a purposeful life from the deepest level of my being, and I am serving all of those around me. I am serving myself and my own deeper purpose, and I'm serving life itself. I am where I'm supposed to be. I am able to offer my gifts in the way that life can receive it and be of service in any situation that I am in. To me, that's the highest calling, is to
Wow.
be of service.
I love that. I love that so much. Well, please tell our listeners again where they can find you, where they can find your work, and we'll close with that.
So, Miriam's Meditations is on all of the major podcast servers, and Spotify, Apple, Google, etc. And you can look me up on miriamsmeditations.com, MIRIAMS meditations.com, and drop me a note. I'll answer you. If you have a question or want to talk about any of these topics, feel free to send me a hello.
I love that. Well, thank you again so much for your time and your presence today and all your knowledge and wisdom that you shared with us. I can't wait to connect more with you in the future, but please let me know if there's anything that I can do to help by all means.
Thank you, Yegi. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening. Please rate and review this podcast. Follow and engage with us on social media under the Yegi Project. And if you're interested in being a guest, email info@theyegiproject.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.